Welcome to the channel. Today, we're exploring some unbelievable story. Stay tuned and let's dive in. My life appeared to follow a predetermined route with few surprises. I had a steady profession as senior editor, to which I was totally dedicated, while my wife Rachel flourished as a senior vice president at her publishing company. Our family life, blessed with 2 adult children, looked to be a model of prosperity and stability. Initially, everything seemed to be in order. However, fractures had begun to appear behind this polished picture, which I did not see at first. What was about to happen would rock all I believed in and demolish the life I thought I had created. With agonizing clarity, I was going to find that the love and devotion I felt for Rachel were more frail than I imagined and doomed to fail. My name is Michael Carter, and I am married to Laura Bennett. My wife is the senior vice president of Harborview Publishing, and I am the senior editor at the Seattle Globe. Our children are both attending college. Our 21-year-old son Daniel is finishing his international relations degree at Stanford, while our 19-year-old daughter Sophie attends UCLA. We both have a nice salary, however she makes somewhat more than I do. I assumed we were happy, or at least I thought so. We were looking forward to spending a wonderful weekend together. Rachel had had a terrible week and was looking forward to the gala. She wore a new black strapless, backless dress that was a few inches above her knees and had a little slit on the left side. She was wearing the diamond necklace I got her for our 24th anniversary, her favorite sapphire earrings, rings, and a duplicate of Princess Diana's ring. Her blonde hair was carefully fashioned into an updo, and she looked stunning. I wore my Hugo Boss tuxedo, which didn't need much attention. She stood approximately 12 feet away, resting against a false fireplace, drinking champagne and giggling like a college student. I wasn't troubled by it. The slimy-looking person chatting to her, stroking her arm and shoulder, whispering in her ear with a self-satisfied smirk, irritated me. He had just spoken something quietly, and she nodded in agreement. Okay, that's enough. It's time to save her from this guy. I was ready to step in when a soft hand grabbed my arm. Don't do anything, the voice said. I glanced down and saw a stunning brunette at my side. She quietly pointed to a rugged-looking guy approximately 15 feet away, whose gaze appeared fixed on me. Then she pointed to the balcony doors, where another guy stood observing the gathering. He intends to lure her out onto the balcony and make a move on her. He'll probably attempt to go too near and touch her inappropriately. That's his normal tactic. If your wife does not answer, he will go on to someone else. He seldom misses his aim. No offense, she said. When I looked back, my wife was still smiling as she followed Mr. Smooth to the balcony. Stepping outside, his 2 accomplices locked the doors and took up positions nearby. Looking at the lady next to me, who seemed melancholy as she drank her whiskey sour, I said, "Who are you, and how do you know all this?" "That was me 7 years ago," she confessed. Startled, I listened as Leah positioned me to face away from the balcony doors and proceeded to tell her tale. I went here with my husband to support a children's charity event, and we were having a great time. We intended to make a substantial gift. Then he approached me. Before I knew it, he was stroking my back and proposing we go outdoors. I was enticed by his charisma and followed him out to the balcony. When we arrived there, he caressed my chest and asked whether I liked it. I was both astonished and fascinated. He teased me just enough to make me breathless, then slipped his hand beneath my dress and into my panties. He slipped in 2 fingers and I hit my peak straight immediately. Then he made his proposal. He asked me to spend the weekend with him. We'd have an intimate encounter and then I'd go home. It was intended to be a one-time event, never to be repeated. I went back to my husband and informed him that I would be away for the weekend with this guy. He remained there motionless, watching as I went out with him. That is what occurred. My spouse was heartbroken. He worked as an accountant. When I returned after the weekend, he couldn't look at me. I tried to reassure him that we could get through it, but he couldn't stay close to me. We drifted away. I started looking for casual encounters at night. He got more withdrawn. His work performance decreased and he finally lost his position. I returned home one night and discovered him in the basement. Following that, I spent 7 months in a mental treatment unit. My 3 children were aged between 14 and 10. They stopped conversing with me. Someone must have informed them what had transpired. My parents have petitioned for custody. I had visiting privileges, but I didn't know what they were doing. When they were mature enough, they petitioned for freedom and severed all connections with me. Looking at her watch, she said, it took him about 15 minutes to change me. He has gone out there approximately 12 times and I believe it is time. Do not turn around, recognize them, or ignore them. If she attempts to speak to you, avoid looking at her. She could suggest she has something essential to discuss. If she does, answer how you like, and well depart together. It'll make him nervous and it could give her pause. For the time being, this may be your only source of pleasure. Well, go someplace to rest and converse. Can you handle that? Be alert. He heard her footsteps coming from behind. She put her hand on his upper left arm and said, Jason, there's something I need to tell you. I shook her off and yelled over my shoulder, get away from me. You are nothing but problems. Say anything you need to, but if you don't come home tonight, don't bother returning. We are finished and I will make sure you regret it. You've got more to lose than I have. I motioned to Leah and we departed. We need to discuss immediately. The mood had calmed down and people stepped aside as we approached the exit. How did you get here? I asked. Car service, please allow me, sir, she said. They brought my Mercedes-Benz up to the front and a young guy unlocked the door. She went inside. I tipped him, got in on my side, and we drove away. I know a quiet place where we can talk, if that works for you. That's perfect, Jason. I could need a drink. We went to the Oak Lounge, a calm establishment with a primarily elderly clientele. We parked, found a quiet table in the rear, and ordered beverages and appetizers. She finished telling her tale, then I told her about Rachel and myself. She was a college professor who had suffered a significant setback in her career when the news broke. I said that I was the senior editor for the Seattle Globe. I told her about my background, 6 years in the Air Force Special Operations and almost 19 years as a writer and journalist. I also informed her about our 2 children, Daniel and Sophie, who are both away at college. So, what are your plans? Plan. I can't even understand my emotions, much alone what steps to take. If she isn't there when I come home, it's time for extreme action. She'll pay, as will he. Oh God, and tears began to fall. She clasped my hand, her eyes filled with pity, as if the world had shattered around both of us. I glanced at her, knowing that if I wanted, I could find solace here, but I couldn't. If there was any prospect of reconciliation, I couldn't pursue it. Look, I apologize, but rebound intimacy is not my thing. I need to go home and confront this. Please submit your contact information so that we can remain in touch. Perhaps we can speak about this. And I'll need that guy's name to begin plotting his doom. She grabbed my phone and inputted Natalie Collins' complete name, phone number, and address. Jason, you are a decent guy. You did not deserve this. I hoped for more, but I accept your decision. Go home and try to sort things out. Best of luck. I paid the bill and we left. I left her off at her townhouse and she went in. I drove home and when I entered, I saw Rachel was not there. Okay, she's made her pick. It was 12:39 a.m. I took up my phone and called my best buddy, Kevin Foster. He was also my attorney. We had served together in the military and often joked about how he had gone on to become a lawyer while I had gotten a decent job. A drowsy voice responded. Hello. What's going on, Tom? It's about 1:15 in the morning. Are you okay? No, Tom. It's not okay. I need you here by 10 a.m. tomorrow. You'll be ready to switch into lawyer mode, or better still, best buddy mode. I'm filing for divorce right now. I overheard his wife in the background. This is Micah. We have an issue. You attended the event, right? Rachel met another man, right? Oh, dude, you had no clue. Just make sure you are here, Tom. For me. Not a problem. I will be there. I began compiling a list. I sought for a locksmith and wrote down his contact information. Then I went online and discovered a website that sells automobiles for cash if their titles are clean. I had purchased her an Audi for our 20th anniversary and it was in my name. I took their contact information, prepared 2 small overnight bags with necessities, underwear, clothing, and shoes, and placed them at the front entrance. Then I went to bed. At 7 a.m., I awoke, made coffee, and checked my computer for newsroom updates. I saw that Eric Dawson, one of our investigative reporters, was online. I phoned Joe and requested him to do a quiet investigation of someone named Brian Mitchell. "Not a problem, boss. He'll get right on it." There is still no trace of my soon-to-be ex-wife. As it came closer to 10 o'clock, I felt worse. I phoned the auto buyer and said that I was selling an Audi with a clean title and a legal California registration. He inquired about the model and proposed a price. "A 2-year-old Audi. How about $5,000? He sounded astonished and even suspicious. "It's not stolen," I told him. "But you have to pick it up." "What is the address?" After I informed him, he promised to be there in 25 minutes. "Do not sell it to anybody else." "He'll be there," he responded before hanging up. Tom and his paralegal, Amanda, came 10 minutes later, just as I had finished with the locksmith. We walked inside, and I served coffee and English muffins. About 19 minutes later, Frank from the car service arrived. I showed him the Audi, its registration, and title. He inquired, "Is there something wrong with it?" "No, it's in good condition. I just don't need it anymore." "Divorce," I explained. "Glad you're not divorcing me," he laughed. They had a flatbed tow truck waiting. I signed all of the papers and Frank paid me before removing the automobile. He shook my hand and wished me good luck. There is still no evidence of my adulterous wife. Back inside, my legal team was working hard in the dining room. They had completed the divorce paperwork, written up a restraining order, and began working on a complaint for alienation of love. Tom inquired about the automobile, and I told that I had sold it since I no longer required it. "You did not do anything criminal. It's a little deceptive, but I like it. Let's resolve the financial things online." For the following 45 minutes, we discussed everything: banks, investment accounts, insurance, mobile phones, mortgages, and my pensions. By midday, my wife hadn't returned, and the locksmith had completed replacing all of the locks and putting keyless deadbolts on each door. We proceeded to Harbor House Restaurant for lunch and met Tom's wife, Denise, also known as Dee. She offered me a hearty embrace to convey her support. Dee sat at the table, apparently expecting me to open up. Finally, I said, "What do you want to know? What occurred, and what are you going to do next?" All I did was trust my wife. She surprised me, and am still digesting it. Can it ever be fixed? Absolutely not. She still hasn't returned, and am at a loss. It seems like the only way out is if she simply vanished completely. Dee nodded as she told me, "I can't imagine why Rachel would do this." After a lengthy chat, we returned. I got home at 6 p.m., still alone and no sign of my wife. I had a drink and fell asleep in my chair. I awoke at 7 a.m., sleepy and aching, and trudged into the shower. After cleaning up, I did something I hadn't done in ages. I went to church. Church provided some calm. I sat silently in the back, hoping for direction, but it seemed as if my prayers were greeted with silence. After Mass, I lingered longer, expecting for a sign, but it seemed that I was on my own in this, which was to be expected. I drove home, stopped at a fast food restaurant for coffee, and parked my Mercedes-Benz next to my 1979 Chevrolet Blazer in the garage. With the changing weather, I'd soon be driving it every day. After closing up the garage, I went on the television to watch the 49ers game, which they lost, as usual. It seems appropriate considering my current situation. At 5:30, Rachel texted me. "On my way. Be home in 19 minutes. Things were about to become hot when the restraining order went into force. 20 minutes later, I heard an unusual automobile enter the driveway. Looking out the window, I saw a nice European automobile. Rachel jumped out from the passenger seat and leaned in to kiss someone, most likely Brian Mitchell. After he departed, she approached the home, but her keys did not work with the new locks. She became perplexed when she observed the 2 little overnight bags beside the entrance. "What is going on?" she mumbled. She rang the bell many times, knocking on the door and yelling for me to open it. She cried, "Open the door, Jason." Finally, I approached the door, confronting my enraged wife. She scowled at me and demanded an explanation. It's simple, Rachel. Your keys do not function since you no longer reside here. The lady I was married to used to reside here, but she has since left. Her eyes widened as she moved in for a kiss. But honey, she started. Don't even try, I interjected. I'm not sure where that mouth has been or who it has been on. How many times did you sleep with him or engage in other activities? We shared more than simply closeness, it was something unique. Oh, spare me, I snapped. You disappeared for 2 days without making a single call. I doubt you ever thought about me. Did you wear your wedding rings while you were with him? She said, at least you kept your anniversary jewelry. They were gifts, so they're yours, I said, pulling her wedding rings off. But these are mine, I continued, handing up my grandmother's engagement ring. Do you remember when I proposed? You won't be needing these anymore. She started crying and trembling. Why are you doing this? She broke out. It was just an experience. I had the right to it. You do not own me. She was recovering her confidence. You should swallow your pride, Jason. We both need to move forward. You're correct, and in doing just that. Here, this is for you. I gave her an envelope, which she looked at with confusion. What is this? She asked. Money, I said. I sold my Audi. I didn't need it anymore. She looked like she had been smacked. What have you done with my car? It was not your automobile. I purchased it for you, but it was under my name, so I sold it. I thought handing you the money would be a fair gesture. That is all of it. She counted the bills, $9,000. That automobile was worth much more. What's happening? That's all it was worth, just like our marriage. After Friday night, I warned you that I would take everything. You had much more to lose than I did. Her face was flushed with amazement, and she resumed her complaint. How could you be so heartless, she wept. I spotted her naked right hand. Where's your diamond ring, Rachel? Which one did you have to have? I offered to acquire a true reproduction, but you insisted on the counterfeit. He wanted a memento from our weekend, she whispered, averting my gaze. So you not only gave him yourself, but also gave away the ring you claimed to treasure, I asked. She flushed and nodded. I checked my watch. It's 6:03 p.m. Get out, Rachel. We're finished. No, I want to come in. This is my home, she yelled. Not anymore, it isn't. I slammed the door shut and latched it, leaning against the hefty wood. My eyes welled up with tears as the agony became more intense. She kept banging the bell, knocking on the door, and yelling for me to allow her in. I called 911. What is your emergency? The operator inquired. Police, fire, or medical? I have a restraining order against my soon-to-be former wife. She's outside, shouting and creating a commotion. Please send someone soon. Moments afterward, I saw 2 police vehicles come, lights blazing. 4 cops approached Rachel, and 2 came to my door. I gave them the restraining order, which they validated at the station. Then I gave her a copy, urging that they handle things discreetly. Meanwhile, Rachel got the notification, and the cops comforted her. She exclaimed, "Where should I go?" Go to hell, Rachel, I said. I couldn't care less. The cops advised her that she needed to leave and brought her and her things to the curb. She used her phone to call an Uber and apologized. The cops waited while she told the driver to take her to Lakeview Suites. Rachel arrived at Harborview Publishing and went to her office on the 10th floor. Her executive assistant, Lisa, awaited her. Is this true? Lisa asked. Rachel turned to look at her buddy and assistant, alert. What are you talking about? Everyone is chatting. You and Jason will attend the event on Friday night. Rachel sat down and said, yes, we went to the gala and spent the rest of the weekend. I'm not sure what you mean, Rachel said. I left with that guy, the creep, and left Jason there. Oh my God, Lisa sank into a chair, weeping. Rachel was taken aback and stared at her pal. How do you know? I have not told anybody. Who else knows? Rach asked. Everybody knows, you stupid. It's all across the corporation, and it's not quite 11 a.m. Lisa fell into her seat, her face pale. Just then, her supervisor, Monica Reed, walked in and looked astonished at the two of them. "Oh my goodness, it's true," she gasped. Rachel was astounded by her boss' response. Things were getting out of hand. Rachel stated defensively, "I think this is being blown way out of proportion." "Oh, really?" Gwen responded with a smirk. "Do you even know who he is? How do you believe the whole city, or even half of the West Coast, already knows?" Rachel grew pale and stared at her hands. "What did Jason tell you?" "He said we were done. Gwen claimed he threatened to destroy me in the same way that I damaged him." "Who does he believe he is?" "He is your spouse, you moron." "What did Jason do when you returned on Sunday?" Rachel looked down at her desk, sniffing. "He sold my car. He said he no longer needed it since he didn't have a wife to drive it." "Oh my goodness," Gwen said. At that moment, the door sprang open and Victoria Hayes, Evergreen Bank's Vice President of Mortgages and Acquisitions, rushed in, followed by Rachel's assistant, Caroline. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Fields," Caroline said. "She just walked in." "It's okay, Caroline." "Come on in, Steph," Rachel remarked with a sarcastic tone. "What on earth did you do?" Steph said. Just then, Rachel's phone rang. It was Jason. "I need to speak to you. Now." Her face paled as she responded, but the phone cut off suddenly. She looked at the phone as if it were poisoned. "He cut off my phone," she mumbled. Gwen sighed. "Oh, that's awful. Very bad." Caroline immediately arrived, explaining that a young lady had urgently requested to see Rachel. She said it was about her marriage. "Send her in," Rachel said, her voice cracking. A tall blonde lady appeared, wearing a navy skirt, ivory top, 3-inch heels and jacket, and carrying a little briefcase. She approached Rachel's desk, glanced around the room, and then centered her eyes on Rachel. "Are you Mrs. Laura Bennett?" the lady inquired. "At least for now," Stephanie interrupted. "Listen here, lady, who do you think you are?" Rachel snapped. "Yes, I am Michael Carter's wife." "Have you anything for me?" Rachel inquired, fearing what was to come. "Congratulations, Mrs. Green," the lady responded calmly. "You've been served." She gave Rachel a huge envelope, took a short snapshot, and went out the door. She paused and returned her attention to the gathering. "My mother tore our family apart 7 years ago, exactly like you did. I hope it was worth it. Good day." Rachel sank her head to the desk, grasping the envelope and straining to breathe. Gwen hurried over and helped her sit up as she gasped for oxygen. Meanwhile, Stephanie phoned a number on her phone and connected to Jason's workplace. "Mr. Green's office. How can I serve you?" "I need to talk to Mr. Green." "This is Mrs. Victoria Hayes from Evergreen Bank." "May I inquire what this is about, ma'am?" "It's about his wife," she said. "I apologize, ma'am. He isn't taking calls from his wife. He told her to simply call him." "One moment, please," the receptionist said. Jason's voice eventually came over the speaker. "Well, Stephanie, the whole throng has gathered around Rachel. Let me presume Jessica and Gwen are also there. With the Queen of Faithfulness." "What do you need, Jason?" Stephanie inquired. "This is excessive. She's in pieces and you aren't helping. What are your plans here?" "Ask her what she expected to happen when she left for a special weekend," Jason replied with a smile. "Tell her to seek a lawyer and speak with them. I will not communicate with her until we sit down with the kids on Saturday. Goodbye, Stephanie." Click. "Oh no," Gwen muttered. "You're in serious trouble." "Well," Stephanie answered, "your only option is to lay it all out and beg for mercy." "Oh, you did that already this weekend, didn't you?" Gwen said with a harsh sneer. Rachel's head struck the desk again, the thud reverberating throughout the office, but no one rushed to assist her. Jason finished the conversation and called his son in Pennsylvania. "Hi, Daniel. This is Dad. We need to talk." "Hey, Dad. What up?" "It's not fantastic, son." "How is Olivia doing?" "She's fine, Dad." "What's happening? Is Mom okay?" She is physically well. I need you and Sophie here for a family meeting on Saturday. Olivia is invited to attend as well. On Friday you will find 2 tickets waiting for you at the desk. Janine will provide you the information. Don't ask questions, just be here. It's important. Dad, what's happening? You are definitely frightening me. Son, I haven't talked to you like this in over 10 years, but I need your trust right now. Just come and don't ask questions. He hung up, opting not to attempt to sway their opinions about their mother. He would let them reach their own conclusions. His talk with Sophie was much the same, albeit she sounded more emotional. She also decided to meet him on Friday. The remainder of his day went pleasantly. He met with his lawyer and kept his private investigator up to speed on any developments concerning Brian Mitchell. Meanwhile, at Harborview Publishing, Rachel's friends came to comfort her as she sat overwhelmed, mumbling, and in tears. What did I do? What did I do? Rachel wept, unable to absorb reality. Finally, Gwen moved forward. We need to pull it together and find a way to even things out. She called her mobile phone. Hi, Carolyn. It's Gwen. Can you take on a buddy of mine's divorce case? Her name is Laura Bennett. Yes, her spouse is named Michael Carter. Wait, what? I see. Thanks anyway. What was that about? Lisa asked. She's already being seen as poisonous. That was Carolyn Herrera. She's a stern lawyer who has little tolerance for abusive husbands or dishonest wives. When she heard Rachel's name, she realized what was happening. She said that if she accepted the case, her own husband would divorce her. They are devoted Catholics with 5 children, and they know Jason and Rachel. She has also heard about the man involved. Stephanie jumped in. Let me give it a shot. She phoned a number on her mobile phone. Hello, this is Victoria Hayes. Can I talk with Brett Walker? Yes, that is a divorce case. Hi Brett, I need to discuss a divorce case with you. Oh, you have already heard. Stephanie hung up, saying, well, thank you anyway. Turning to Rachel, she said, no luck, honey. I am running out of alternatives. Rachel leaned forward, her head resting on her arms on the desk. Jason then enlisted the help of a few buddies to cause some covert trouble, nothing significant, but he didn't want them caught. They placed sugar in Darren's gas tank, threw paint balloons at it, and used an air grinder and a roto-zip tool to scrape up the hood, sides, top, and rear deck. Finally, they deflated the tires and sliced the sidewalls, destroying the pricey tires totally. This back-and-forth vengeance was likely to continue for a long, and Jason didn't mind the cost. It took Rachel some time, but she eventually found a feminist lawyer who would handle her case. Everything was building up to the family gathering on Friday. The temperature in Boston was almost as frigid as it was back home. The children flew in from both coasts. Daniel brought his soon-to-be fiancée along. Jason hoped he was making the correct choice, since this encounter was sure to be emotional. Their mother was still in the hotel, and they didn't understand why. Jason had informed them they'd get the opportunity to meet with her the next day. They inquired where she was. She's in the Lakeview Suites. If you want to see her and talk to her, you can go there, Jason stated. I tried, but her mobile phone is no longer functioning. Why is that? It has been unplugged. Call her at work or leave a message at the front desk. Strange. Is it true that she has not phoned you herself? Daniel inquired. Sophie glanced across at Daniel and his fiancée. What is going on? Your mother has some things to explain. I cannot talk about it. You will have to speak to her yourself. You'll understand better if she tells you. They attempted to contact her via her secretary, but were unable. They scheduled a meeting for Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Jason brought the kids out to supper, and although it was little uncomfortable, they had a good time. Saturday morning dawned bright and cool, as is normal for Boston this time of year. At 10 o'clock, the children sat with their coffee, waiting for their mother to come. She arrived with the Honorable Catherine Wallace in tow. Are you serious, Rachel, bringing your lawyer here in front of the kids? Jason murmured, as Linda stepped by Rachel. Linda grinned and said, my client does not want her character attacked in front of her children. It's your call. They entered the living room and the children hurried up to their mother, full of questions. "No questions for my client," Catherine Wallace said. "What? Who is this?" Sophie inquired, perplexed. "I am Mrs. Rachel Green's attorney." Linda responded, "Your father is filing for divorce from her." The game was over. Jason sat back with a gentle grin and said nothing. Steve encouraged him to speak the truth or say nothing at all in this scenario. Looking back, it was sound counsel. Daniel was the first to speak. "What's happening, Mom?" he asked. Rachel glanced aside, barely muttering, "I don't know." Sophie and Olivia directed their gazes toward Jason. He still had his side of the tale to tell, so he remained calm. "Really, Rachel? Is that how you're treating this?" Jason said. He was frustrated. "I want the truth." She began crying, barely saying, "Your turn." Jason wiped his eyes. "Fine. Your mother and I attended a children's charity event last Friday. She ended up chatting with a guy who promised her a weekend of exciting events she'd never forget. This occurred just on the ballroom balcony. Women who had been targeted by him informed me of his objectives. Then they departed together and she informed me that she was going home with him for the weekend. I feel bad for not stepping in. She is an adult who can make her own decisions, but I regret not standing up to him. I could have created a scene, but I did not. I feel humiliated and embarrassed. Your mother, on the other hand, made the decision she was expected to make. I hadn't heard from her until Sunday afternoon, around 4:45, when she texted that she was on her way home. She returned about 5:25 and he dropped her off. I could feel my rage mounting. She walked up as if nothing happened. Her keys wouldn't work since I had changed the locks. I didn't want to risk her bringing him into our house. Rachel said, "You sold my vehicle." I previously mentioned that it was my automobile. I purchased it. It was under my name. I handed you the proceeds from the sale. I did not give it away as you did to yourself. Rachel began to break apart, mascara and eyeliner blurring as tears streamed down her cheeks. Do you know what hurts the most? She attended the event wearing her diamond necklace, which I got her for our 20th anniversary, as well as her Christmas sapphire earrings. When she got home, she still had them, along with her wedding and engagement rings. I took them back since we are no longer married. The engagement ring belonged to my grandma. Do you know what was missing? The one item of jewelry she said mattered the most to her. What was her favorite, even if it was a low-cost replica? The one I promised to replace with an improved version. She constantly wore this ring. My children knew straight immediately. Lady Dis ring. Rachel began crying uncontrollably. Yes, it's Lady Dis ring. She lost it. Do you know why? Jason continued. Please stop, Rachel. You want a souvenir. You gave it away, just as you gave yourself. Daniel and Sophie grabbed onto each other, astonished. Rachel was deteriorating. Please stop. I will sign everything. Please stop, Rachel implored. Jason spent the weekend and the whole week straightening things out while sobbing. He wept much. That's why there is nothing left. Then Ashley said, Daddy, can't you forgive her for one mistake? Daniel said, Yeah, Dad, that was just one time. Mom deserves more from you. Move on. I missed my first opportunity to face this front-on, feeling unprepared for their reply. I was shaken. Was I truly the only one experiencing this pain? Was it all my fault? Did my children realize what was happening? Are you even listening to what we're saying? Do you understand what she did? I inquired, my irritation increasing. Let's go over it, I said. Tell me, Rachel, did you have an improper chat with a guy other than your spouse last Friday night? I talked to a nice guy, she said, her voice trembling. Another chance slipped away. Answer the question, I urged. Well, I suppose I might have, she said, looking down. Did he instruct you to let your spouse know you were going home with him for the night? Yes, she said gently. Did you sleep with him when I wasn't there? I asked. I don't know, she said, barely above a whisper. Tell us what you did this weekend. Did you play games, read poetry, or write letters to the children? Did you even consider of calling your husband? I inquired, my fury growing. Nothing but a hoe, I said under my breath. She hurled an insult, but I did not answer. I wanted it, so I did it, she confessed with a trace of guilt in her voice. Know this, I replied, keeping my voice calm, you'll be questioned under oath about that weekend. Everyone will know, if they don't already. And what about the lady who delivered the papers to you? She is really a lawyer. She offered since her family had been through something similar. That is why she became an attorney. Rachel now realized the enormity of the situation. She fell down entirely, her confidence gone, in front of me and our 3 children. I'll sign everything and give it to Peter today, she said quietly, dejected. Catherine Wallace interfered. I don't think that's in your best interest. You're fired, I said, cutting her off. Kathleen, send your invoice to my office and I'll take care of it. Right on point. I felt like I had hit a home ball into center field at Camp Sky Park. Rachel approached the door, glanced back at me. Goodbye, Jason. Kids, I'll call you tomorrow and we'll meet up, she whispered quietly before departing. The door closed behind her. Catherine Wallace remained in the living room and I cast her a hard gaze. Well? She asked. Get out of my house, you witch, I yelled. The attorney huffed and departed without saying anything. That's when the reaction began. Dad, how could you be so rude with Mom? Is she being treated that way? Ashley said, her voice full of astonishment. What is wrong with you, Dad? Are you really divorcing Mom over this? Daniel explained, annoyed. I thought to myself, I'm glad I sent both of them to college. Do you think I should just accept this? Is this what you anticipate from your own marriages? I looked toward Olivia. If that's the case, get out now, Olivia. She gasped and looked at me. I'd never do something like that, Dad. It's wrong from all angles. Surely, Dad, you're not really going through with this? Daniel inquired, his voice shaking with rage. Mike, I told my son, it's determined, and if you can support me in this, don't ask me to any future occasions. Any event. I kept his stare, watching as his rage, which was so similar to mine, blazed up. Ashley, however, continued to protest. Why were you so mean, Dad? Mom was really sad when she departed. She is in severe pain. You should forgive her and accept her back. I was astounded that my children were on her side despite everything. Olivia finally spoke out. Dad, this may annoy Mike, but you're correct. Mom refused to admit her mistake or apologize. Not that it would have changed anything, but showing some contrition would have been appropriate. Tension pervaded the room. About 2 hours later, they contacted their mother and scheduled a visit. I handed Mike a spare key and advised him to drive cautiously. He glanced at me and asked if I wanted to go along. Are you kidding me? I raised my voice. Mike gazed at me, claiming he didn't understand me. Meanwhile, I increased my efforts against Darren, and my allies seemed to be having fun while dealing with it. One of their measures was to change his license plate and then anonymously report his automobile stolen. I was astonished with how readily they could access his automobiles, despite the fact that he kept both his Porsche and Mercedes-Benz in a garage. They also followed him on the Dan Ryan Expressway, employing a smart gadget to delay traffic and force him into the center lane. When he attempted to depart, they pushed his Porsche into the barrier. It was severely damaged and he was hospitalized for 10 days. His insurance price increased dramatically and he lost his old coverage. The man was having the worst luck conceivable, and when the authorities got involved, they didn't appear too eager to investigate. They were aware of his notoriety but chose to ignore his issues. Most of them presumably imagined that an enraged spouse was exacting his retribution. Thank heavens for the cops. That evening, Tom phoned to inform me that Rachel had delivered the legal paperwork herself. He had a good judge lined up. His kid had been a victim of the same person 4 years before, and the court promised to expedite both the divorce and the alienation of love action. We weren't sure how far we could push the adultery accusation, but it was worth a try. Following the first conflict, the kids became aloof, with only Olivia expressing support for my choice. They returned to school about a week later, and the divorce proceedings continued. When the final decision arrived, I felt a sense of relief. just in time for the Cancer Society ball. I knew he'd be there, and I was ready for some retribution. At a coffee shop, one of my pals had a concept so brilliant that I had to see it for myself. I phoned Leah to see whether she would be attending the event. She indicated that she had been invited but had not chosen. I recommended she come, it would be worthwhile to see some of the entertainment I had planned. We arrived at the gathering and mingled, recognizing Rachel and her friends, Gwen and Stephanie. She tried to talk to Darren, but he was preoccupied with a small blonde in a green outfit. Meanwhile, his two colleagues kept her husband distracted as he made his move on her. He took her into a separate room, closing the door behind them. I contacted the spouse and offered to assist provided he trusted me and followed my instructions. He was worried, so Leah explained the issue to him. I advised him that causing a commotion may get him injured, but if he remained cool, they'd still leave together, albeit a little humiliated. He stared at the thugs, paused for a bit, then grudgingly consented. I offered to link him with individuals who might help him and recommended that he could humiliate his wife sufficiently to elicit an apology. He proceeded with the plan. We followed them as they emerged from the private area, led by the wife. They paused to get their jackets while the thugs arranged for their Mercedes-Benz to be brought around. We left just as they were going into the back seat, with him pulling her in and kissing her. After they shut the door, the second goon went into the front passenger seat. The spouse was nervous, but I advised him to wait. My friend's idea included two of his buddies who worked at a car detailing company. They'd offered the guy's workplace a discount ticket for an inside cleaning and a free vehicle wash. While washing the automobile, they placed 3 smoke bombs, each with an electrical detonation and emitting a skunk-like stench. As the car's brake lights flickered and it continued to go ahead, it came to a halt approximately 10 feet later, colliding into a cab on the front right side. The doors flung open and 4 individuals crawled out, gasping and choking as smoke poured out of the automobile. The blonde's dress fell down, exposing her underwear to anyone who passed by. The woman's husband hurried to her side, although a little wobbly due to the scent and smoke. I grinned as the fool fought to get up, limping on his damaged leg. Just then, the cops came. As the jerk approached his former sweetheart, her husband intervened, punching his stomach and kicking his crotch. He went down. The husband swiftly took his wife away, disregarding the lingering skunk odor and scolding her as they departed. I turned to Leah and said, "Score 1 for the good guys." I had handed the husband my business card with my mobile phone number and asked him to contact me the following day. Then I called a speed dial number from my phone. "Hello," a voice replied. "Great job," I remarked. "Thanks," he said. I closed the conversation by giving the husband my card and told him to contact me if he needed anything. Leah and I went to her townhouse, where things swiftly escalated. We ended up in her bedroom, seeking a deeper level of intimacy. I hadn't remained celibate since my divorce, but this seemed like a new level of closeness. In bed, she pulled me down and concentrated all of her efforts on me, nibbling away and leaving scars. She climaxed dramatically, calling out her late husband's name as she did so. It was a raw moment, with her emotions running high. She slumped, weeping, before gathering herself and apologizing for her outburst. I comforted her, acknowledging her anguish. We spoke, realizing the severity of the situation. I wasn't sure how I felt about her, but there was clearly a connection. After resting, I washed, dressed, and kissed her before departing. She inquired whether she'd be all right, and I vowed to call in the coming months. Leah and I became closer as family affairs progressed. My son married, and despite everything, they brought his mother and expected me to handle the issue. I told him I would, but I didn't come. Olivia's family was unaware of the complete event, and they were upset when Olivia's wife informed them. Her mother was surprised and her father was enraged. Olivia's Italian family severed relations with my ex-wife, and her grandmother even spit in Rachel's face. Things became heated when one of Rachel's pals hit on her, generating a disturbance. Rachel broke down and fled the reception. I gave Olivia a kind message and a check, and I drafted a letter to her parents explaining why I couldn't be with Rachel. I also wrote a frank email to my son. The wedding ceremony took place in Kingston, Pennsylvania. A year later, my son and daughter-in-law had a newborn boy called Jason Giovanni Green in honor of his father and grandfathers. Olivia asked me to the baptism, which made me very happy. I went to Pennsylvania, slept at a motel, and attended the service at St. Andrew's Cathedral in Harrisburg. Meeting my grandson, my namesake, was an absolute thrill. But when I saw Rachel enter with someone, I almost lost my calm. She approached me and I looked at my kid, wondering whether she was really here. Olivia softly begged with me to remain calm, just this once. "Sorry, honey," I responded, giving her an envelope and left. Back at the hotel, I checked out, went to the airport, took a flight back to Boston, and returned home. Afterward, I almost had to change my phone number. Childish? Maybe. But that's how things went. Jason eventually got a position with the Justice Department in Boston. When I phoned to congratulate him and Olivia and inquire about my grandchild, I could hear her voice in the background. "Who is on the phone?" she cried out from a distance. I hung up and turned my phone off. Following that, I basically stayed to myself. The only person I maintained frequent contact with was Leah, who had become a close friend and confidant. My secret campaign against Brian Mitchell was still ongoing. He was attempting to figure out who was behind it, but he wasn't successful. Even my son and Olivia were aware of the situation. It was little, but it had become something of a legend. About 3 months later, Olivia phoned me at work. "Dad, next Saturday is little Jason's 3rd birthday. We're hosting a party and we want you to attend." "I'd love to, sweetheart, but you know how I feel," I told you. "I do not want to spoil it. Mom is not invited." I informed Michael, your son, that she was not welcome that day. "If he invites her, I will cut him off." I absolutely admired this chick. My kid was fortunate to have her. "I'd be honored to come," I said. I got the details and cleared my schedule for the day. I contacted FAO Schwartz and ordered a Tonka dump truck, much like the one I had as a child. They packaged it and sent it to my workplace. I remember buying one for Jason when he was little, and he adored it. No electronics, just metal and rubber wheels. They were always popular, particularly with grandfathers. I came at 10 a.m. on Saturday. We had a great time: lunch, cake, coffee, and gifts. I chatted with Olivia's parents, who stated they understood why their daughter valued me so much. Olivia's father adored the dump truck. "It reminds me of the one I had as a child." "Excellent choice, Mike," he remarked. I liked him. Little Jason ran around the backyard with the truck until he became weary. His mother and grandmother brought him in for a sleep. Even my son was respectful. He handed me a drink and suggested we rest in the garden. I heeded his advice and relaxed in a lawn chair while sipping my drink. A shadow swept over me, and I glanced up to find Rachel holding what seemed to be a glass of white wine. "Hello, Jason. Mind if I join you?" she asked. I gave her a glance but did not answer. She placed down her enormous shoulder bag and sat, crossing her ankles, an old position that used to fascinate me. "Not this time." My look made her noticeably uncomfortable. "You aren't making this easy, are you?" she remarked after a lengthy gap. Anyway, Michael indicated I'd be coming, and his wife made it obvious I was not welcome. He may not be delighted, but he felt it was worthwhile to attempt to mend our relationship. Michael believes we deserve another opportunity. I want us to be together again, to wake up next to each other, and to grow old together. It's been lonely these last several years. What say you? Can we give it another shot? I examined her over. She had aged, gained weight, and had a nervous twitch. No apology, just a speech. I wondered what had happened to the lady I had married. I groaned, drank my drink, and got up. "Well?" she inquired, her tone hopeful. "Not just no," I said, starting to walk away. "But hell no, Rachel. I've gone through hell for the last 3.5 years because of you." Maybe that was harsh, but it seemed right to say. I turned and went away, up to the patio, then through the sliding glass doors into the kitchen, when I came across my kid, who was smirking at me. "So, Dad, how did it go?" he asked. "It's not too tough, right?" Just then, a fire alarm went off, followed by shouts as visitors fled outside. I grasped my son's arm. "Your mother could be harmed. Go check on her." He became pale and raced outdoors. I got a water bottle, went into the living room, and sat alone on the sofa. The cops came to take statements. A.44 tool may do considerable harm, I said, adding that I hadn't talked to my ex-wife in years. I consoled my daughter-in-law, who was in tears, before leaving for home. Leah phoned after hearing the news. I told her that I was handling things well and did not need assistance. No, it'll be fine, but thanks for the offer. On Monday, I contacted Mark Richards, our best crime photographer in Boston and a recipient of several accolades. Do I need a favor? I asked. My ex-wife took her own life at my grandson's birthday party on Saturday. Yeah, most people know about it, boss. We apologize. Even if you two were not close. Thank you, I appreciate it. Do you have any connections on the forensics team? I'd need shots of her skull and head in color. 10x12 is excellent. Stu gave me a puzzled look as he thought about it. That's an uncommon request, but I believe I can pull it off. I know people that owe me one. It might be strange, though. Thank you, Stu. I owe you, I explained. You'll have it in a few days, boss. I began to consider a fresh approach for my vengeance campaign. The 3-day wake took place at an upmarket funeral home on the west side. Her coffin remained closed because of her looks. She had a vast network of friends, with hundreds in attendance. I was not there. Word circulated that my absence had not gone unnoticed. The day of her burial was chilly, dark, and rainy, and I felt uncomfortable and wet. The procession consisted of 4 flower vehicles, 3 limousines, and a hearse, with around 60 automobiles following. I was not one of them. Instead, I stood at the cemetery, observing from afar through the hazy rain. I watched as they brought the casket to the grave. Despite the dismal weather, a huge audience came, and the priest talked warmly of her, leaving me wondering who he was portraying. Given the circumstances surrounding her death, I was shocked he consented to talk at all. I spotted my son scanning the surroundings, perhaps looking for me. After the ceremony, people started to depart, until only close friends and family remained. As the gathering dispersed, it was down to just my kids. They strolled to the limousines, with my son standing at the rear door of the Mercedes-Benz, looking around one final time. When he didn't see me, he climbed inside, and the vehicle slowly drove away, disappearing into the mist. I walked out from behind the woods just as the groundskeepers were about to close the grave. As I approached her casket, I pondered a little act of rebellion, but then realized that all of my hatred and contempt had evaporated. It had mysteriously vanished. Looking down at the lady I once loved, I sighed and said my last goodbyes. I forgive you, even if you never acknowledged your mistakes. I forgive you. I used to adore you, but no more. I arrived at work the following day to find a huge envelope on my desk. I hesitated, knowing what was inside, but soon found the guts to open it. The photograph was not attractive, but it was of her. With the impending Children's Society benefit commemorating the 4th anniversary of all that had happened, I phoned Leah and offered her to accompany me. She happily accepted, and we planned for me to bring her up at 8 p.m. I then called the Society editor, our investigative reporter, and a photographer into my office for a strategy discussion. Once everyone had come, I outlined my strategy. Next weekend, I want that expose on Brian Mitchell published, I stated with urgency. There were nods of approval. Only confirmed, factual, legally supported stories, accompanied by depositions and sworn testimonies. There is no conjecture. We should have sufficient proof to bring him down. I want cameras at the event to document everything, and then well interview the organizers to obtain a total of the earnings. Can we make this happen? I do not see any difficulties, boss. The editor replied, we'll be ready to publish by midnight Friday, with room for any new photos. Thank you, everyone, I said. A week later, I accompanied Leah to the children's charity event. After checking our jackets, we socialized with friends. He was stalking among the throng like a predator, looking for his next prey. He quickly focused on a lovely brunette with long hair, whose husband had just gone to the bar for drinks. Her champagne glass was almost empty. She grinned as Darren approached, whispering something into her ear. She leaned in closer, blushing slightly. He stroked her arm, then her shoulder, making her shudder. Moving in closer, I saw one of his henchmen position themselves at the balcony doors while the other approached her spouse. Sensing something was awry, the husband turned and gave Darren a hostile look, but Darren just resumed his attempts. I turned to Leah. "Now," I said. She walked back and came closer to the second henchman, waiting. Darren murmured to the lady again, grabbed her arm, and started leading her to the balcony. She smirked, as if enjoying the attention. I walked between them to speak. "Excuse me. You do not know me, but this individual made similar approaches on my wife around 4.5 years ago. She caved in and joined him for the weekend. It shattered our marriage and resulted in this," I said, handing her a snapshot of my wife's battered face. "Here's my wife. She ended her own life last week." I put the photograph in her hands. She became pale, trembled, and dropped her glass, which broke, generating commotion among the throng. "This is your chance to avoid the same mistake," I quietly told the photographers close. I observed one of Darren's goons approaching me. The surprised lady gazed at the photograph before turning to face Darren. "You jerk," she cried, hitting him across the face, her claws scratching into his flesh. His bodyguard started to go forward, but Leah interfered. "Excuse me," Leah whispered quietly, pushing him back. I turned to go and brushed past Darren with my right shoulder. "It's you," he growled, grasping for my shoulder. "Let go of me," I muttered, twisting to the left before rotating back to strike a good blow on his nose with my right hand. His nose collapsed, his jaw shattered, and blood spurted as he fell like a bag of bricks. His henchmen remained still as cameras flashed around them. Leah grabbed my arm, and the trembling brunette's husband rushed to her side. "Please take me home now," she said, her voice shaking. Leah and I headed onto the dance floor. As we got to the middle and faced the audience, the throng separated. I pointed right at Darren. "I should feel ashamed for what that man got away with," I said. "You should all be embarrassed for supporting him by giving here. The charity, Boston, and society as a whole must accept responsibility for his conduct. This weekend, a newspaper piece will unveil the truth and the brave comments of his victims. Read it and allow it to sink in." Leah pulled me away from the throng before I lost control, and we made our way back home. She cooled my hurting fist and we had a lovely night together. The repercussions arrived swiftly and were terrible. Although his acts were not unlawful, public opinion was harsh. He became a pariah. Charities turned down his money. Contributions to the Children's Gala decreased by 65%. Several organizations refunded his money, removed him from boards, or officially censured him. Even the NAACP severed connections. His tarnished reputation as a stockbroker resulted in the loss of his license and employment. He attempted to sue me and have me jailed, but the husband of the lady he targeted, a Cook County ADA, initiated his own inquiry, rendering the complaint moot. 2 weeks after being dismissed, he was discovered in an alley near the old stockyards. His genitals had been removed and inserted into his mouth. Too awful. Leah and I became a pair, despite our reservations about marriage. Reconnecting with my children and developing ties with hers has been both tough and gratifying. We're tackling the difficulties as best we can. Thanks for watching. Was the revenge justified? Let us know in the comments.